Okay, so, I think when most folks hear the name George Foreman, they probably picture, a grill.
Right.
Like
Well,
they picture a smiling face next to a grill and, lean, juicy results.
yeah, yeah.
But while that is, a huge part of his story, that's
Uh,
really just one chapter in a life that was truly remarkable.
oh, yeah.
So, this is a man who recently passed away at 76.
Hmm.
And we really wanted to kind of do a deep dive into his life. And I think what you're going to find is it's a journey. I mean, with more twists and turns probably than any boxing match.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating how, that one act,
Mm.
this grill can overshadow such a multifaceted life, you know? I mean, think about it. We're talking about a guy who was a two-time heavyweight champion,
Yeah.
a gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist,
Yeah.
a preacher for a decade, and then, of course, as you mentioned, this incredibly successful entrepreneur.
Right.
I mean, each of these phases
Yeah.
on their own would be like a compelling story.
Mhm.
Just actually, yeah. I mean, we have,
Should cram it all in.
yeah, we have some pretty fascinating details here that really do kind of trace his path
Mm-hmm.
from, those challenging early years in Houston's Fifth Ward
Yeah.
to becoming a global icon.
Yeah.
And it really is a story about resilience, you know,
Reinvention.
and
Yeah.
constant reinvention.
Yeah.
So what we really want to do is go beyond,
Uh-huh.
the headlines, beyond the endorsements, and really try to understand
Yeah.
what were those key moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what were those, forces that really shaped
The driving force.
this extraordinary individual.
Yeah. And what sparks that initial change, right? Like,
Well,
what is that,
yeah,
we see it so often in these kind of, you know, stories of achievement, where
yeah,
there's this raw talent,
yeah.
but there's a lack of direction.
So how does a kid struggling, in the streets find the
Yeah.
discipline, not only to compete but to win
Right.
at the highest levels of sport?
So let's start by taking a look at those early years.
Okay.
He's born in Marshall, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
but he spent his childhood and adolescence in Houston's Fifth Ward.
Yeah.
And it was, by all accounts, a really, really tough environment.
Right.
Not an easy upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
His mom, Nancy, and stepfather, J.D. Foreman, were kind of his anchors.
Yeah.
His biological father wasn't really in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you really do kind of get this sense early on that,
Yeah.
this is someone who's had to learn a certain amount of toughness just to navigate,
Yeah.
the world around him.
Right. And I think, that raw power
Yeah.
that you mentioned was there,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it needed it needed a catalyst, right?
Yeah. I mean, in his early teens, that energy was
Yeah.
definitely not being channeled constructively,
Right. Yeah.
He drops out of school.
Mm.
He's involved in petty crime.
Yeah.
He even admitted to being a bully.
Right.
I mean, there's this really powerful statement that he made that kind of captures this period
Yeah.
where he said, I didn't know where I was going, but it wasn't anywhere good,
Mm.
And I think that speaks volumes about just being,
Oh, yeah, that's powerful.
yeah, I mean, it really is,
Yeah.
a young man who's adrift.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, that purpose, at least initially,
Yeah.
arise, through the Job Corps in the mid-1960s.
Right.
So this
Right.
was,
Yeah, the Job Corps was huge.
all right, it was a game changer for him.
Yeah, it was a
I mean, providing him with structure.
it was structure, it was opportunity.
Right, providing him with opportunity.
And
And it was there, it was in a gym there,
almost by chance, right?
almost by chance,
Yeah.
where he first puts on the gloves.
Yeah.
And apparently there was a trainer there
Yeah.
who just noticed
Just raw,
just the sheer physical strength as he's working the heavy bag.
untamed power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't
refined technique.
No.
at all,
It was just raw power. But that trainer saw something.
That's it. He saw the potential,
Right.
a diamond in the rough, if you
Yeah,
will.
and it was
And boxing
yeah.
for him becomes
Yeah.
this focus,
Yeah.
right? This way to channel that energy
Right.
and aggression
Mm-hmm.
into a disciplined pursuit.
Exactly. And it's not an overnight transformation.
Well, right.
But he
But he has the building blocks.
Right. I mean, he has this incredible natural strength.
Right.
And then he has this incredible determination.
But drive.
Right. And it's remarkable how quickly he starts progressing once he finds his footing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, by 1967, he wins the National Amateur Athletic Union heavyweight title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. You go from,
Yeah.
a troubled kid on the streets
Yeah.
to a national champion in the span of just a few short years.
That's incredible.
And that victory, that punches his ticket to the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City.
Wow.
And he's 19 years old at this point.
19 years old.
19 years old.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the 68 Olympics were a really
They were
significant moment in his
They
life.
were a moment.
Right. I mean, you had,
beyond the sport.
yeah, you had the Black Power salutes, you had,
Socially, politically.
you're right, all these protests. It was a very charged
Without attention.
atmosphere,
Yeah.
But Foreman, he just seemed laser focused
Yeah.
on his goal.
Right.
He just moves through the competition. His power just proves to be too much for his opponents.
Yeah.
He reaches the final,
Mm-hmm.
and he's up against Jonas Spielis of the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a tactical battle.
No.
I mean, he overwhelms the Pepulus,
Yeah.
secures the gold medal
Oh,
with
yeah.
a second-round knockout.
Wow.
And the image, of him grabbing that small American flag and waving it in the ring,
Yeah.
given the backdrop of everything that was going on politically,
Of course.
it sparked conversation, but it just felt like a genuine expression of pride
Right. Yeah.
in that moment,
And that gold medal was so much more than just,
Right.
a piece of metal.
It was a lifeline.
It was a lifeline.
It validated all his hard work.
Right.
It gave him a platform,
Uh-huh.
and it catapulted him
Yeah.
into the professional boxing world.
Changed his whole trajectory.
Yeah, and
Well.
so he turns pro in 1969.
Yeah, and the heavyweight division knew.
Yeah.
They knew that a new force had arrived,
Oh, yeah, this wasn't just another contender
No.
working his way up the ranks. I mean,
Right.
this guy
Yeah.
exuded raw power.
Right.
I mean, and his style.
I mean, forget fancy footwork.
Yeah, forget it.
It was all about landing those devastating punches.
Yeah, it was relentless.
I mean, he was like a human wrecking ball on the ring.
Aggression.
Yeah. So his early record is,
Astonishing. I mean,
it's astonishing,
Yeah.
37 wins,
all by knockout.
all by knockout.
With 34 of them coming inside the distance.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of dominance,
That's rare.
that's rare.
Yeah.
It's
People weren't just losing. I mean, they were
right.
being emphatically stopped.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have that kind of record.
Yeah.
You're inevitably going to get a title shot.
Yeah.
And in 1973,
He's facing the seemingly unbeatable Joe Frazier
Right.
for the heavyweight championship.
yeah,
And Frazier at this point,
come out of that famous victory over Ali.
coming off that victory over Ali,
Yeah,
he had this reputation, for being incredibly tough
as tough as they come.
and resilient.
Yeah, he was like,
I mean, he was like a mountain of a man,
yeah. Yeah.
And so this fight,
Sunshine Showdown.
the Sunshine Showdown
Yeah.
in Kingston, Jamaica on January 22nd, 1973.
What a day.
Frazier was undefeated at 29-0.
Right, the established champ.
The established champ.
Yeah.
And most people expected this.
Oh yeah, it was going to be a war.
A brutal back and forth war,
Yeah.
between these two powerful punchers.
Right.
But what actually transpired was just almost unbelievable. I mean, Foreman didn't just beat Frazier. He dominated him in a way that
Nobody saw coming.
few could have predicted,
Yeah.
He knocks Frazier down 6 times in 2 rounds.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the commentary from that fight,
Oh yeah, I mean it's legendary.
down goes Frazier, down
Yeah.
goes Frazier, down goes Frazier. I mean, it's iconic for a reason.
It is.
Yeah. It was just this
Overwhelming power.
overwhelming display of power.
Right.
And so the fight stopped.
Yeah.
And at 24 years old, undefeated record, George Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world.
Wow.
So, I mean,
You talk about a meteoric rise.
he's a meteoric rise,
Yeah.
And then he defends the title
Okay.
twice later that year.
Mhm.
He has these quick knockouts against Jose Roman and Ken Norton.
Right. Norton, who
The same Norton who had broken Ollie's jaw.
exactly.
No,
It's a
but-
period of absolute dominance. Like nobody could stop him.
He looked unstoppable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then,
Comes 1974,
uh-oh.
and you have the legendary Rumble in the Jungle
The Rumble in the Jungle.
against Muhammad Ali in Kinshasa, Zaire,
Right.
orchestrated by
The one and only Don King.
the one and only Don King, you know.
Yeah.
And this was an audacious event.
I mean, this was
I mean, it was
funded by millions.
funded by millions from Mobutu Sese Seko.
Yeah.
And it was just, it had this aura
Yeah.
of the extraordinary.
It was a spectacle, you know.
Yeah.
It was more than just a fight.
It
It's
was
an event.
going into that fight. Foreman is
A clear favorite.
he's the clear favorite.
He's young. He's undefeated. He's got
He's young. He's undefeated. He has that incredible knockout streak,
this knockout streak.
right?
Yeah.
Ali, on the other hand,
Yeah.
is 32.
Oh, okay.
You know, a lot of people considered him past his prime.
Right.
The odds are heavily in Foreman's favor.
Hmm.
But Ali, ever the strategist, the master strategist,
Had a plan.
okay,
Right. And he employs this now famous
the rope-a-dope.
rope-a-dope tactic.
Yeah.
So instead of, his usual movement,
Right.
he's deliberately leaning against the ropes.
Yeah.
He's absorbing Foreman's punches,
Absorbing the punishment.
hovering up, taunting him.
Is that all you got, George?
Is that all you got,
Right.
George? Right.
Yeah,
So this was a risky strategy,
risky.
but it was designed to wear Foreman down.
Yeah, make him expend all that energy.
Right. No.
Just drain the battery, right?
Yeah, and Foreman, accustomed to just overpowering his opponents,
Right. These quick knockouts.
right,
Yeah.
he keeps throwing these big punches.
Right.
But a lot of them are, blocked. They don't have their full impact because Ollie's leaning back.
Yeah.
And all that effort just starts to take a toll.
And all those haymakers, just throwing them into the air.
Yeah, draining his energy.
It's gonna take a toll, right?
Yeah, so by the 8th round, Foreman is visibly exhausted.
Oh yeah.
The punches have lost their steam.
Yeah.
And Ali sees his opening,
Yeah.
comes off the ropes,
Mhm.
a quick flurry,
Mm-hmm.
clean right hand. Foreman goes down.
Wow.
The count reaches 10.
It's over.
The undefeated champion is dethroned.
Just like that.
And
The
the
crowd.
roar of that crowd chanting, Ali Bomaye!
Chills.
It's something that you can still feel today.
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
one for the ages.
and that defeat was a real turning point.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a
I mean, for Foreman, that aura of invincibility was,
it was gone.
it was shattered.
Yeah.
And he later said that he felt lost
Frost, yeah.
after that fight,
Yeah.
It was a profound experience.
He's got to reevaluate everything.
That really forced him to reevaluate everything.
His life, his career.
Yeah. And so he continues to fight in the years that follow. But he wasn't quite the same dominant force,
Not quite the same.
And then in 1977,
Mm-hmm.
he faces Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico.
Jimmy Young.
And he loses that fight
Loses again.
by decision,
Mm-hmm. But it was what happened.
But it's what happens
After the fight.
after the fight that really marks this radical shift.
This radical shift.
So
Tell me more.
he's exhausted after this fight.
Yeah.
He's severely dehydrated, and he collapses in the dressing room.
Oh, wow.
And he described it as a near-death experience.
Wow.
This really profound spiritual awakening where he felt himself slipping away and said he heard a voice telling him he wasn't ready to go.
Wow.
And it was
That's
it was a transformative moment for him.
That's a transformative moment right there.
And it leads him
Okay.
to step away from boxing completely.
Completely. Wow.
So he becomes a born-again Christian.
Mhm.
He dedicates his life to his faith.
Wow.
And he founds a church in Houston,
A church.
Yeah.
And
for the next decade,
okay.
George Foreman,
The heavyweight champ.
the fearsome heavyweight champion, becomes Pastor George.
Pastor George. Wow. Okay.
And his commitment was,
Real deal.
it was genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, he poured his own resources into establishing a youth center in Houston, really focused on providing guidance and support for young people in situations similar to what he had experienced growing up.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And he famously said, I found something bigger than boxing. I found peace. And it really did seem like he had found
a new calling.
a new calling,
Yeah.
And for 10 years, the boxing world just kind of
Moved on.
without George Foreman.
Right.
Most people just assumed his fighting days were over.
Right.
And so when he announces his return to the ring
Yeah.
in 1987,
1987.
At the age of 38.
38.
It was met with,
Surprise.
widespread surprise and skepticism.
A lot of skepticism.
Yeah.
I mean, why? After a decade away.
Right. Why? Why after a decade away would you want...
Murder is such demanding sport.
Yeah, to that punishment.
Right.
Yeah.
And he stated, that he needed the money to support his youth center.
That makes sense.
And
that's a good reason.
That was certainly a factor,
Yes. Uh-huh.
But you also kind of sense that there was this personal challenge, this desire to maybe prove something
to himself,
to the world, and the initial reaction. I mean, a lot of people just thought he was too old,
too heavy.
Too heavy. He was around 250 pounds.
Yeah. Just past his prime.
Yeah. A lot of chasing a paycheck comments.
A lot of, this is just about the money.
Yeah.
And he definitely looked different.
Yeah, he did.
From that lean, menacing champion
of the 70s.
Of the 70s.
Right.
But that raw power was still there.
Yeah.
And he displayed a surprising amount of resilience.
Oh.
He starts fighting,
lower level opponents.
Not kind of lower level opponents.
Yeah.
And he's gradually,
building up
wins, silencing some doubters along the way.
Yeah, proving the doubters wrong.
Yeah, and I think the real test came in 1991 when he challenges Evander Holyfield for the heavyweight title.
Holyfield was in his prime.
Yeah. I mean, he was a formidable champion, and Foreman's 42 at this point.
42.
And he loses that fight by decision.
Okay.
But the fact that he went the full 12 rounds. Yeah.
Against a fighter of Holyfield's caliber.
That's impressive.
I mean, that was a
feat.
That was a remarkable achievement in itself.
Yeah.
And I think he really earned
some respect.
Earned a lot of respect that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, in Las Vegas on November 5th, 1994.
Okay.
You have one of the most iconic moments in boxing history.
Wow. Okay.
George Foreman, at 45 years old,
45,
steps into the ring against Michael Moorer.
Okay.
And Moorer is a young, undefeated champion.
Okay.
19 years younger than Foreman.
19 years?
19 years younger.
Wow.
I mean, almost no one gave Foreman a chance.
Oh, yeah.
And for 9 rounds, the fight unfolds.
As expected, kind of, right?
Kind of as expected.
Yeah. Moorer is quicker, more agile.
Moorer is quicker. He's more agile.
Boxing him.
Boxing him,
Yeah.
He's building a lead on the scorecards.
Mm-hmm. Foreman just keeps
coming forward,
absorbing punches, seemingly biding his time,
waiting for his moment.
Yeah, and then in the 10th round, it happens.
The moment.
It happens, seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Foreman lands just this short, powerful right hand.
Right on the button.
Right on Moorer's chin.
Wow.
Moorer goes down hard. Referee stops the fight.
It's over.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
At 45 years, 9 months, and 15 days old.
Wow.
George Foreman is the oldest heavyweight champion
in history. Wow.
And his reaction was it was so characteristic of him,
Yeah.
No wild celebrations, no boasting.
Just sits down on his stool.
He sits down on his stool,
Yeah.
Big grin on his face, and he later says, I told you I could still do it.
Wow.
Powerful.
I
mean, it was just this...
What an image, right?
Iconic image.
Perseverance, defying the odds.
Of perseverance, of defying the odds.
Amazing.
Yeah. So he retires again in 1997.
Okay.
And this time, it seems final. Right. But, as we know, the name George Foreman... continues to be this household name.
Right.
And not just for his boxing achievements, but for something
totally different,
Yeah. So
George Foreman.
The George Foreman lean, mean, fat-reducing grilling machine. Launched in 1994.
Okay.
And it just becomes this
phenomena.
Sensation, and I think,
in large part, because of...
The big part of it is due to Foreman's,
that presence,
engaging, charismatic presence in those infomercials.
Ubiquitous infomercials.
Yeah. I mean, knock out the fat. There comes his unforgettable slogan,
Yeah.
He was this big, genial figure that people trusted, The grill itself was simple, but effective design.